We did not call ourselves criminals. We were librarians of life itself. Our world was turning to dust. The great green heart of Earth was failing. So we devised an impossible plan. We would steal its living soul. They said it was madness to try. The Interstellar Authority had strict laws. No unsanctioned terraforming was allowed. No cross-system contamination of biomes. They called it the Prime Directive of Purity. We called it a death sentence for our home. So we ignored them. We became smugglers. Our mission was simple and insane. We would carry a forest across the void. We would find a dead rock, and we would give it a living, breathing heart. We were thieves of the grandest kind. We were stealing a planet's future. We stood on the gray launch pad. The last transport was closing its doors. Earth's air tasted of ash and goodbyes. We were leaving everything behind. But we carried everything that mattered inside our ships. We became the silent exodus. Our ships were not built for war. They had no weapon ports or energy shields. They were repurposed heavy freighters, great, ugly things. We called them the vessels of green. Inside, they were hollowed-out cathedrals, caverns of steel waiting for life. We retrofitted every cargo bay. Starboard holds became redwood forests. Port holds were temperate jungles. The central corridors mimicked river valleys. We installed 1,000 sun lamps. They mimicked the light of our lost star. They were programmed with seasons we might never see again. Our engineers argued with our botanists for weeks. One wanted efficiency and power. The other wanted the perfect wavelength for photosynthesis. The botanist won, of course. You do not argue with the person growing your air. It tends to be a short conversation. We turned our ships into cosmic terrariums. Each one an ark meant to cradle a forest. We took the very ground from under our feet. This was not a symbolic gesture. It was a logistical necessity. The soil of old Earth was priceless. It held billions of microorganisms. It held the memory of seasons. It was the foundation of everything. Huge machines carved out entire meadows. They scooped up the dark, rich loam. We packed it into containment fields. The fields held the soil in zero gravity. Cargo Bay 3 smelled of damp earth and rain. It smelled like a home we were leaving forever. The work was hard and dirty. We were covered in mud for a solid month. Our clean, sterile ship felt wonderfully alive. We tracked dirt into the engine room. The captain complained half-heartedly, but even he knew this was sacred dust. We were packing the soul of our world into boxes. The sleeping giants were our first passengers, the ancient redwood trees of a forgotten coast. We could not take them all, so we chose the strongest, the oldest. We mapped their root systems with deep sonar. Then we lifted them, roots and all. Each tree was a skyscraper of life. Their massive root balls were cradled in force fields. They rose into the ship's open maw. They were silent, majestic, and terrifyingly huge. In the darkness of the holds, they pulsed. We could feel their slow, deep life. It was a hum in the deck plates, a feeling of ancient patience. These trees had seen empires rise and fall. They had watched our own species climb from the dirt. Now we were asking them to trust us, to sleep through a journey between stars, and to wake up in an alien sky. The responsibility was crushing. We engineered entire river ecosystems. You cannot have a forest without water. So we built rivers in the sky. Massive tubes, hundreds of meters long, snaked through the ships. They connected the different biomes, a closed-loop system of impossible scale. The water was drawn from Earth's last clean oceans. It was seeded with phytoplankton and fish. We brought pebbles from riverbeds. We included the moss that grew on them. Every detail had to be perfect. The system had to live on its own. We turned on the pumps for the first time. Water began to flow in defiance of the void. We stood on a small bridge in Cargo Bay 7. A river flowed 5 feet beneath us. The sound of running water filled the sterile ship. Some of us cried. We had a river between the stars. The journey was quiet for a long time. Then a signal appeared on our screens. It was a Xylan, patrol ship. Their profile was sharp and aggressive. They were known for their thorough inspections. Our hearts stopped. An unscheduled stop was not in the plan. Their ship hailed us on a universal channel. Their voice was synthesized and cold. It held no warmth, only suspicion. Unidentified freighter, cut your engines. Prepare to be boarded for cargo inspection. You are in a restricted trade sector. We had no choice but to obey. Our captain smoothed his uniform. He rehearsed the lines we had all memorized. Of course, officer. Just hauling some raw minerals to a refinery. He tried to sound bored, as if this happened every day. But his hands were shaking. We all felt the same cold dread. The great deception began. The Xylan ship latched on with docking clamps. We could hear their magnetic boots on our hull. They were coming aboard. Our plan depended on hidden holds and a very convincing performance. We had designed the ship with this in mind. The outer cargo bays were legitimate. They were filled with worthless iron ore. We even added a layer of dust for effect. The manifests were perfect fakes. Every document screamed boring mineral transport. It was the most expensive lie in human history. The Xylan inspectors came aboard. They were tall, insectoid beings. Their movements were jerky and precise. They scanned everything with cold, analytical eyes. We led them through the dusty, echoing holds. We showed them mountains of worthless rock. They seemed unimpressed, and that was exactly what we wanted. The calm lasted for hours. Then something strange happened. A feeling washed over the bridge crew. It was a sense of profound peace. It felt like a slow, deep breath. The tension in our shoulders eased. The fear began to melt away. It came from the hidden holds. The trees were speaking to us. Not in words, of course. It was something deeper, a bioresonant field. Their ancient consciousness felt our panic, and they were trying to calm us. The forest was protecting its protectors. We felt their immense patience, their slow, powerful life force. It was a silent song of wood and leaf, a song of deep roots and high branches. It filled the ship with a quiet strength. We were not just smuggling trees. We were partners with a forest's soul. A sudden jolt threw us against our consoles. A red light flashed on the damage control panel. A proximity alarm screamed. It was a micrometeoroid, a stray piece of rock. It had breached a cargo bay. Bay 9, the temperate jungle. The pressure alarms began to blare. Air was rushing out into the void. The sudden decompression threatened the entire biome. The delicate balance was collapsing. We saw it on our monitors. Leaves were flash freezing. The air was thinning to nothing. We had minutes before the whole section was lost. An entire piece of old Earth would die. We scrambled our repair teams, but the breach was in a hard-to-reach spot. They would never make it in time. We watched in horror, helpless. Our mission was failing. Then a new light appeared in Bay 9. It started as a single, tiny spark. It grew on the inner wall, near the breach. A bioluminescent fungus had bloomed. It was one of the thousands of species we had saved, and it was reacting to the pressure change. The fungus spread with impossible speed. It grew in a vibrant, glowing web. The light was beautiful and ethereal. It covered the crack in the hull. The strange plant was feeding on the energy differential. It spun a living patch over the hole. The hissing of escaping air stopped. The breach was sealed. A single, humble spore saved an entire forest. The fungus glowed with a soft, blue light. It was a beacon of life's fierce will to survive. We just stood there, staring at the screen. Sometimes, the cargo saves the smugglers. It seemed like a fair trade. We thought we were safe. We had survived the Xylans and the void. But a new threat appeared ahead of us. An entire fleet of ships blinked into existence. They were sleek, silver, and unnerving. This was the Warden's fleet. The enforcers of the Interstellar Authority. They did not hail us. They simply blocked our path. Their formation was perfect and intimidating. They knew we were coming. Someone must have tipped them off. Our deception with the Xylans had not been enough. They knew we carried something illegal. Our captain stared at the main screen. His face was a mask of grim determination. There was no running. There was no hiding. Their ships were faster and stronger. They want to scan us, he said quietly. They want to see what's in our secret holds. A full spectrum scan would reveal everything. Our journey was over. We had one last, desperate idea. It was a plan born from biology, not battle. It was absurd, but it was all we had. We had no weapons. But our forest did. We had weapons of pollen. Our botanists rerouted the ventilation systems. They directed the airflow from the pine forest hold. They aimed it directly at the main exhaust ports. Then, they simulated the start of a new spring. The sun lamps warmed the air. The humidifiers created a gentle breeze. The trees responded, as they always had. We opened the exhaust ports. A massive, dense cloud of pine pollen erupted from our ship. It was a golden storm in the blackness of space. It billowed out, directly into the Warden's fleet. Their advanced sensors were not designed for this. They were instantly overwhelmed. On their screens, it must have looked like a sensor ghost, a massive organic energy reading. Their comms channels crackled with confusion. They were blinded by the stuff of life. It was the best kind of weapon, one that only causes sneezing. We pushed our engines to the limit and fled into the golden cloud. We found it after weeks of silent running. A small, barren planet in an uncharted system. It circled a young, stable star. Our probes confirmed the readings. It had a thin but breathable atmosphere. It had water locked away as ice. It was a silent, waiting sphere of rock. This was our canvas, our new world. From the view screen, it looked unremarkable. Just another chunk of stone in the cosmos. But to us, it was the most beautiful thing we had ever seen. It was a blank page waiting for a story. It was a promise. We eased our fleet into a low orbit. The ships hummed around us. They were tired, battered, but they had done their job. They had carried their precious cargo safely. Now it was time to deliver it. The real work was about to begin. We had crossed the dark ocean. Now it was time to build the shore. The moment had arrived. The first planting. We opened the great doors of our ships. The cargo bay doors groaned in protest. They had been sealed for so long. Light from the new sun streamed into the darkness. It touched the sleeping giants for the first time. We lowered the first redwood. Its massive root ball touched the alien soil. The connection felt electric. It was a handshake between two worlds. Then we released the smaller things. We let loose the soil, the water, the seeds. A torrent of life poured from our ships. It flowed down the barren slopes of the planet. A river of old Earth soil and water. It carried the hopes of our dying world. We stood on the observation decks. We watched as our secret became a new reality. We had smuggled a whole world to save another. At first, nothing happened. The soil settled. The water pooled in craters. The seeds lay dormant on the ground. For a day, there was only silence. A deep, profound silence. We held our breath. Had we failed at the final step? Then, the planet began to breathe. Small green shoots pushed through the dark soil. The seeds had taken root. The ancient trees unfurled their leaves. They drank in the light of a new star. The process was unnaturally fast. The life we brought was explosive. Within hours, a green fuzz covered the valleys. Within a day, it was a lush carpet. The air began to change. The oxygen levels started to climb. We had not just planted a forest. We had ignited a chain reaction of life. We had smuggled a living soul across the stars. And now, it was awake.